Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. We got an interesting one for you today and some of the odder details and dyno curves we've ever seen. The top selling cordless impact wrench on Amazon, Avid Power, their new high torque. We've tested their best selling mid torque before and it was pretty good, but not a darn one budget high torque big boy off the website has been worth its plastic in our opinion, so after many attempts, today we're aiming to change that. And all new from Works and requested by you guys, the Works Nitro high torque. They're rating this new guy the exact same specs as a Milwaukee favorite, so we'll see if it's up to the task. Then take both tools apart to spot what would appear to be some growing trends among the latest high torques on the market with their sights on the top. This is the Avid Power ACI W338. Like most Amazon brand type kits, it comes with a 4 amp hour battery, charger, and some common lug nut sized impact sockets. This costs about $145, which as a kit puts it near the bottom in price of every high torque we've ever tested. And its torque claims are also not very high, which we like typically for Amazon brands, just 730 foot-pounds, 1,000 newton meters. Unless this tool is just flat out terrible, they aren't lying at least in some tremendous way. We often see Amazon mid-torques advertised making that, and they don't. At just over 9 inches long, this is one of the longer boys in the category and something we also find common among Amazon brand types, so wasn't that surprising to see. Our next contender today, however, is a bit of the opposite in every way. This Works Nitro WX276L is one of the latest high torques on the market and surprisingly is not super long. Other dimensions, sure, it's a bit of a chunker, but at 8.3 inches long, it comes in shorter than the Milwaukee Gen 2, which the Avid Power and most general high torques do not. And this Milwaukee is a good comparison today because, well, for one, it's one of the most found in shops across the country, and number two, the new Nitro high torque is advertising 1,000 foot-pounds fastening, 1,400 foot-pounds bolt breakaway, and yeah, exactly to the T matching the Milwaukee 2767. They clearly had their crosshairs on this guy, so let's see if they've been able to do it. This type of package and those type of specs don't come for free though. We paid $280 for this kit, and it's only sold as a kit at the moment, which feels not very worksy when it comes to the price point and their typical offerings, but maybe you're getting a lot for your dollar. This kit comes with their new 5 amp hour battery, which we've not had a chance to use before. We typically have their 4 amp hour on hand, which is most common. We'll be showing the difference, if any, on our dyno runs. Either way, one thing's for sure, you're getting a lot of mass. This is also one of the most gravitationally endowed units we've ever bought. At 7 pounds 6 ounces, it's a hair off the weight of a Milwaukee with an XE 5.0 attached as a bare tool. The Avid Power is in fact heavier as well as a bare tool, but less so, about 1 pound heavier than the Milwaukee. So let's see how they get on versus the 2767, then we'll be ranking them on the chart that includes the absolute latest and greatest from Milwaukee and DeWalt in 2024 to ultimately see where they place. Up first is the Avid Power in our 5-second forward working torque test. They sell thousands of their crazy popular mid-size impacts on the site a month, so we'll be comparing it against that on screen here now. $376 foot-pounds and less of a gap between the mid and high torques here than we would have liked. All said, not a whole lot. Here's hoping it likes the reverse better, and my hopes of finding something decent on the website aren't dashed. Okay, and next the Works Nitro with the Milwaukee on screen now in the same test as the last one. Okay, looking a lot more high torquey here with 519, both living in the shadow of that red brand right now, including Works, which is rated the same down to the decimal. Let's head over to reverse to settle the score. This is a 60 some odd year old industry standard test called max torque, performed in reverse, 10 seconds, median result on screen of 3 as usual. Here's the Avid Power doing its thing versus the 2 red competitors. $619. No Milwaukee, but let's also remember it's only rating itself like 73% of one of those. Well above par then here, and well above its mid-torque brother, not looking bad at all. These are decent numbers for a cordless high torque. And this is the Works Nitro. $695. Yeah, we're still in the 600, sure, but I'd like to for a second call your attention to this little phenomenon here. It's following like an Avid Power curve, then boom, shoots up at the hardest part of the curve to gain ground, where everything is most tight, catching up quick to the M18. Coming in like a freight train, adding foot-pounds per second at rapid pace, which is rare. We often don't see that. So we took a look at RPM, something the Works doesn't advertise, which I found odd. The M18 2767 spins at 1650 to 1700 RPM for us. I'd call that like pretty middle of the road. The Avid Power spins at 1720 RPM, fairly close to the stated RPM of the Milwaukee. The Works, on the other hand, well, it starts out at 1800, then 1900 and 2000, and slowly climbs up to 2100, 2150 RPM. And that's plain strange for a few reasons. One, it's high RPM. Two, it's not just instantly high RPM, it ramps up. Like the motor is really coming to grips with having to spin up the mass inside this thing. And three, this impact has the lowest IPM, impacts per minute, of any high torque here today. Highest RPM, but slowest hitting. This is why it's climbing up here at the end. Hitting slower hurts you down low, but it can mean the tool is making more meaningful hits, which helps it when things are very tight compared to the others. So yeah, it's gonna look a bit strange inside, I assume. Alright, last test series, our best case scenario, 15 seconds of reverse or forward, whatever they do best with. Batteries fresh off the charger, their best runs. Avid Power up first. $696. Damn, that's not bad. Just about closing in on 700 there. I think it might not be obvious how comparatively good this is for a budget impact, so here's a comparison against three others, which include a classic DeWalt DCF 899 here, and it's above that, and a Hercules High Torque, their non-ultra high torque, above this as well. And the Harbor Freight Bauer High Torque as well, sort of the torque per dollar king lately. Those are all in a similar arena, this Avid Power from Amazon topping them for like $110 as a comparable bare tool or so. Not mad at that. And last up, the Works Nitro, in case you were wondering how their more common 4 amp hour battery does on this tool. Yeah, not great. It doesn't even work. This works. That's funny. Actually arrived to us late. We planned to use it on the new Senior Universal battery, but that wouldn't power it. So we figured, well, that battery doesn't like a lot of modern high torques, oh well, but this appears to be the case on even existing Works batteries. A bit surprising, not something we've seen, and maybe why they sell it as kit only. Appears you need a 5 amp hour power share battery that comes with the tool for it to even run. Here it is with that. $816, carrying that freight train mentality to the end there and passing up the Milwaukee now, and it's smooth too.
Nice. It feels like it's doing 400 foot-pounds.
It's probably the weakest feeling impact for the actual amount of work it's doing. We've tested in a long time. This gets a very low 6 out of 10 on our wrist-breaking score, and most of that is simply feeling the mass inside rotate, turning your hand. Very low down on the list here, which is a good place to be. So let's rank these tools, then take them apart to help explain their performance. Starting below this Milwaukee here, the Avid Power and Works runs are turned into 38, 62, and 70, and 52, 70, and 82. As a function of their length and the torque they made, that's 76.9 and 98.3 foot-pounds per inch. Anything around or over 100 we consider to be fairly modern in design, so it's looking pretty good here. When looking at their torque claims, the Avid Power gets a rare W in the form of 94 points for an Amazon impact. That's 94%. The Works with an 82%. That's not bad all said either. As a function of their prices, now these get the sort of Lowe's Cobalt treatment we normally give tools that only come in a kit. These are adjusted prices to compare with other bare tools as we see it. Feel free to adjust these as you see fit, but that's 94.9 and 55.9. This is a darn overall record in cordless. It's just really high value. That said, this tool doesn't normally place on our main rankings as it's an Amazon brand, and the lack of a lasting warranty and few tools the battery works with going along with that, but we want to see how it places, so this all totals 435.8 and 440.2, placing the Avid Power for now between the two very good Rigid and Bosch high torques, and the works way up here near the latest Hilti, Metabo HPT, and Snap-on. Very nice. So this won't be staying here as it belongs on an Amazon only list with other kit pricing, and these are still both under the top of the world models up here, but still, damn. Let's see how they pulled this off. You might not be surprised to find that the insides of the Avid Power are about as simple as we see in brushless impacts. Epoxy potted base electronics board, sure, good stuff, and some big capacitors on there, those caps holding onto plenty of juice after the fact, but otherwise, very to the point and a lot of empty cavities. The hammer mechanism isn't based on the classic Milwaukee type design though. It's a single O-ring sealed encasement, and the driving sun gear is straight, not helical. Makes for some simple to machine or maybe center planetary gears, which are in a double shear structure. The hammer and anvil itself were very dry. I'd probably squirt some moly grease in there. And the hammer is 2 pounds 7 ounces. That's chunky. The Milwaukee 2767s is 2 pounds 4.5 ounces. And all that mass is riding up against a drive anvil with needle bearing up front at the bushing. This is sort of an old school design and cool to see. Most brands wouldn't spare that extra length this takes up. It's clearly using a larger hammer to be able to do what it can do, but overall, nothing wrong with it here. The works is a bit more of everything. Each screw and bolt on this tool is larger and heavier than we normally see. It explains some of its heft. And the hammer case bolts have gobs of blue Loctite, which we like to see. Inside, besides a mini board that houses just the capacitors and the handle, which is uncommon, you mainly find this tool is all about the hammer case. The motor is not only disproportionately slim compared to the business up front, it's also not a factory works unit and branded Histrin, an outfit that makes brushless motors. So you could possibly shop around in much the same way Works has for this sort of build. Though I don't hate that, leverage what you're good at, and in this case, that appears to be pumping out massive hammer assemblies. This thing is an absolute beast. And it's 2 pounds 10 ounces, the second heaviest hammer assembly we've ever weighed and a 1/2 inch. Look at the hammer and spring size on this thing versus the Avid Power next to it. And that's not even the full story. This uses a Milwaukee Gen 3-ish type design where there's no bearing pressed into the top. In fact, there's a shielded bearing pressed right into the planetary housing itself. A nice design, I think. But that means this weight here is even without a usual bearing on top. So compare this 2 pounds 10 ounces to the latest from Milwaukee, a similar design, with 2 pounds 4 ounces, almost a 1/2 pound heavier. That's a lot when it comes to hammers. So this does seem to explain everything about this guy. It spins up not instantly because that's a lot of mass for a comparatively small off-the-shelf motor to spin up. Its IPM is low despite the high RPM because this hammer and spring size the motor is having to overcome may be not tuned perfectly for that task. And it makes gains here at the end because slow IPM doesn't lend itself to a timed test, but can make the gains it's capable of when things are tighter and each hammer hit is making more of an impression than its competitors are. Good stuff. I like it, wish it worked on all their batteries, but it's sort of a Texan way of making an impact. Just throw a whole bunch more mass at the thing and make bigger booms. It might not loosen things faster overall, but it will loosen them in most cases and more than most impacts. Being rated for the same as the M18 2767 here, but making noticeably more sauce because of this strategy. And the Avid Power, torque per dollar king at the moment by our math. For less than a 12 volt compact impact, you can get a battery, charger, sockets, and a high torque that doesn't suck. A first for us on the channel from Amazon, as most 1/2 inch high torques from the website are pretty much garbage. I don't think it's a new trend, but love finding those diamonds in the rough. We might find more of those when you join us each Friday for a new episode. Click stuff below to join the torque testies, and thanks for watching.